Good afternoon. I'm sure after a day of interviewing you know the applications extremely well, so if I miss anything out or you want to nudge me in any direction, please feel happy to jump in. I'm quite happy to make this an interactive exercise. You probably won't even need to look at your notes by now, and if there's any questions, feel free to interrupt. Okay, the way I'm going to answer this, the task, I'm going to do the task is in three parts. The first part I'll look at some of the issues around the criteria, but what I understand to be the criteria. I've got a handout on it because rather than gamble through them, I thought I'd just give you that and talk a bit about some of what I understand to be some of the main points. The second part I'll do is about telling you what the applications are about, what the project involves, how much money is involved, and those sorts of details. And the third part is I'll measure the applications with the criteria and give you recommendations and reasons for recommendations. Okay. These are the notes I've made about the key criteria. Some of them are self-evident, like number 3, that the project has clearly defined realistic goals, has reasonable timetable, doesn't need any explanation. But the other part, I've kind of written a few lines about it to show you basically how I've evaluated projects and some of the things I've thought about. It's not comprehensive, it's not meant to be, it's just a guide really. Now, I didn't use the assessment framework, the point system, because in this situation, in this instance, I didn't think there was a problem choosing which application should be funded or not funded. So I've taken it from the key criteria rather than breaking it down into points. Okay, the notes on the key criteria. First of all, the application fulfills personal objectives, things like self-development, gaining qualification. The essence of this criteria, I believe to be that the individual actually fulfills something from undertaking the project. It's a two-way process. The second criteria is that the project benefits the community. There's many ways of benefiting a community. There's tangible ways, increasing resources. There's other ways, increasing the pride of the community. So it's a range of different ways that the community can benefit from projects. The third one's fairly straightforward. The fourth criteria is measurable outputs. I think in essence that the project must set out to achieve a particular set of goals. It's not enough to say we want to increase the knowledge of certain members of the community. You've got to be able to demonstrate how that's going to happen. So it's really being able to measure the effect of the project. The fifth criteria, fairly straightforward. What you're asking me is, are there initiatives that could fund the project which maybe are better sources of funding than this project? That's fairly straightforward. Number 6, the work with the community reduces barriers of exclusion, improves quality of life, or improves communication, understanding. I think exclusion is a very broad category. Can be any measure that helps people feel part of a larger group, really, any excluded people. People that do either by poverty or difficulty accessing, or maybe perceived barriers, that, be it racism, institutional racism, or simply not knowing about a particular thing. Improves quality of life, very broad category. Could be include physical, making the area cleaner, so people can take more pride in it. Could be emotional, or even spiritual elements. They're all factors that go to increasing quality of life. So that's some of the ways I've used the criteria and what I've understood by them. Like I said, it's not comprehensive. I've not had a lot of time really to do this. Okay. Right, the actual applicants. There's Roger the first applicant I'll talk about is Roger Dory. He lives in Chelsea. He's 35 years old and he's from the Cameroon. He's a client of the foundation, therefore I assume that he's been a victim of torture or organised violence. His status in this country is he's seeking asylum, and he needs a translator. He speaks French and a little English. The project that he's outlined is to set up a five-a-side football team from local boys from the community, and that's boys from the Cameroon community. He will undertake training to become a coach and will affiliate the group to a five-a-side league association, and then he'll hire a hall and kit the boys out and play games. It's targeted at adolescent boys, particularly because I think there might be identity issues around the boys, and there's evidence that the applicant's quite familiar with the community. He seems to be embedded in the community. He's shown that he knows the needs of his community, because he has chosen five-a-side as opposed to other types of football, because he's aware that many of the families would not be able to afford football boots. His history, his relevant experience was that he was a teacher in the Cameroon, and he's taught physical education. Also, perhaps I should mention, in the project it has a mentoring aspect in that he will also teach the boys about fitness and health and life skills as part of coaching them. The cost of the project is £2,300. Probably the higher of the pitch is actually that's the most costly, and membership of the Football League. Okay. The second project is by a chap called David Rogers. He lives in Southwark, the borough of Southwark. He's 80 years old. He's English, I assume he's English. His connection to the foundation is that he was held by the Japanese during the Second World War. He's also mentioned Eric Lomax's group of service veterans. Now, I know Eric Lomax is either patron or trustee of this organisation. I'm not aware of what the connection is, so there might be pertinent things in there regarding there might be some kind of pertinent connection there, and some kind of legitimate connection that will strengthen the project. The aim of the project is to help children of a local junior school convert derelict school land into community gardens, and in the process teach local children gardening skills. The end result really is a community garden built by the children effectively. He will act as the facilitator. His history or relevant experience to be able to undertake the project is that he was a teacher in South London, and he has 30 years of gardening experience on his allotment as well as his own garden. The cost of the project is £1,500 for tools, flowers, and there's also bench so people can sit and enjoy the work of the children afterwards. The third project is a woman called Holan Hirut. She lives in Hackney. She's 26 years old, and she's from Somalia. She's a client of the foundation, and she's undergoing treatment. So again, I assume that she's been a victim of torture or organised violence. Her language is English, and her status is that she's a refugee. She's been in the country for 6 years. The aim of her project is firstly to document Somali women's history and produce a booklet and a website. Also to set up a friendly society for Somali women and to teach them English. To undertake this, she wants to take TEFL training, which is teaching English as a foreign language, and web training to set up the website. She will then recruit 10 women to talk about their wartime experiences and to teach them English. She also transcribed these experiences into a booklet which will be distributed in local libraries, then set up a website with the information on it. Her history and relevant experience is not clear from the application. The cost of the project is £2,300, the majority of which is the training, the TEFL and the web design course. The rest covers travel, equipment and stationery. Okay, so that's the 3 applicants. Now, I've actually got a handout with this third part, which I'll give to you, and I'll briefly go through the each application, the application and the criteria to see how they match up, and I'll make recommendations. Now, if I firstly deal with probably the last one on the sheet, which is Hoda and Hirut. If I look at personal objectives of this applicant, it's to gain TEFL qualification, it's to gain a web design experience, it's also to increase the skills and support members of the local community, with an emphasis on raising the participation of female Somalian women, because there's an inequality in skills and in profile. How it benefits the community: it will produce a female Somalian teacher, which is quite important. In that it encourages other Somalian women to be more visible and maybe to come forward and gain access to help in different ways. It raises the profile of the group and increases the confidence and participation of Somalian women in the project. Now, the third criteria is clearly defined realistic goals, and I would say this is where the project falls down. The outline is vague, it's undefined. I'm going to teach the women some English. It's unclear in that there's no rationale given for why the applicant has chosen to wants to set up a website. For what reason? Who's the audience? There's no thought being put into that. There's no evidence of the applicant's suitability for undertaking the project. We don't know. She wants to do something like a TEFL course, but we don't know whether she has the teaching English course, but we don't know whether she has a degree, which is a prerequisite for undertaking that course. She says her spoken English is good, but her written English may not be. We don't know. We don't know anything about her background. The web design course, she wants to do a short course and then set up a website. Well, I think it takes more than just a short course to have an effective website, and also there's no reason given for why she wants to put it on the internet. What's the importance of that? There's no mention of premises or essential equipment like computer. If you're going to do a web design, you need a computer. The other I would strongly recommend that this application is rejected, because the other quite worrying, I think the thing that worried me about this application is that this client wants to get together a group of women to talk about their wartime experiences. Now these might be very traumatic and very, it might open a huge can of worms, and there's no awareness of the need for support. That if you've got a group of women together, there's issues about confidentiality. If they're talking about something traumatic, they need support and a way of closure after doing that experience. She talks about moving from an oral tradition to a written tradition, and at one point she says she's going to do that. Then she talks about the group of women that she will recruit will do that. It's a big leap. It's a big leap in thought. It's a big leap in action, and I just think it's very unrealistic. And the other factor is that she says she's going to recruit Somalian women, the impression being that she's not really in a position in the community to be able to identify women. And she's not talking about who's going to recruit and how she's going to recruit these women, how she's going to approach them. The project stands alone. It's not linked with any other organisation. And the other factor I think to consider is her safety. If she's going into, she talks about doing the English classes from home, from people's home, from women's home. It's an issue about her safety as well. If she's walking into a situation where she doesn't know the people, it could be potentially quite dangerous. I think in essence, my impression from the information given is that basically this client wants to further her qualifications and wants to gain these experiences, the TEFL qualification, the web design, but has kind of thrown in a medley of ideas which aren't really very well thought out to support her application. I think had she put in a bid to gain the TEFL teaching qualification, which she would then use in a local community centre to teach women, then I could see the value of it would be quite clear, but it seems to be a bit of a hit and miss project. So for that reason I would suggest that it's rejected. The second one I'm going to talk about is David Rogers, who wants to set up a community garden. Now, he has a passion. His personal objectives is to show his skills, and he has a passion. He seems to have a passion for gardening. It benefits the community in that it is a resource to the community. At the moment it's a derelict land. It becomes a source of pride, and it involves the community in the environment. It teaches the children gardening skills and gives them access to a garden, and it also encourages them to invest in their environment in time and appreciation. Clearly define the criteria 3, clearly define realistic goals. Yes, he's got the background, he's got the teaching background, he's got the support of the local school, which is extremely important, so they will support him to do that. The reasonable timetable, yes, it's achievable in a year. You'll need to take action very soon because of the growing season, but probably this time in May you could have a garden up and running. Measurable outputs, yes, before and after, it's very visible. It will also be documented by the school because it will be that the lessons will be integrated into the curriculum. The other funding, now this is the problem with, this is where I think that the board needs to consider it quite carefully, because he's got a very strong proposal, he's got the support of the local school, and he could probably access a multitude of funds. I certainly know that there's been a lot of money earmarked for environmental projects in Southwark. There's regeneration funds, he can apply to the local council, there's education and environmental trust that he can approach, as well as children's charities. So there's a plethora of places he could get funding from, particularly as it's a very strong proposal. The other factor is that he's able to communicate very well in English and very confident and knows the area, so he's in a very good position to make other bids. But the effect of the project will be to reducing exclusion. A lot of children don't have access to green space at home and may never have the opportunity to learn about gardening, so it does, in that respect, it does that. Improves the quality of life, yes, by augmenting the environment, and communication understanding, yes, because he's 80 years old, they're very young, it reduces the barriers of age between ages, particularly as I think the elderly can feel very threatened by young children, and young children, there's a barrier between the two. So with this project, what I would suggest to the board is that it's a very good project. It does seem to have quite a tenuous link to this organisation for putting in the fact that, now, this is not to undermine or belittle his experiences in the war, but it seems more not looking at the criteria, but looking at the actual aims of the funds, which I got off the internet. I think that possibly this one should be rejected, or alternatively some funds should be given to him, maybe half the cost, or maybe the £250 for the bench, some kind of gesture recognising the fact that he's got legitimate claim. But I think he should be encouraged to apply for other funds, because I'm pretty sure he'd get them. So that's David Rogers. The third one, I would recommend that the board actually supports this one. This is the bid put in by Roger Dory. He's a chap from Cameroon who wants to set the five-a-side football team. This is because it meets his personal objectives. It will give him training in a skill in this country. It will give him a valuable skill. He's 35 years old, he can maybe use it in different ways. It benefits the community. There are 10 boys that will learn football skills as well as life skills. So they'll increase their self-esteem, it'll establish a positive link to their country of origin, because Cameroon apparently has a great tradition of history of football. I don't know that much about football, that's probably evident. It provides a leisure activity to deprived youngsters, and so will ease the pressure on the family unit. Clearly defined realistic goals. Yes, it's clearly thought out and costed, but he may need, the applicant may need a language support to get the coaching qualification because he has little English. Also, there's a discrepancy in the cost of hiring the pitch. He's underestimated the cost of it. It's by about £100, just under £100. I don't know why that is. It's a reasonable timetable. Yes, I think that the boys may already have some football skills, so they can probably start competing in the league fairly soon. Measurable outputs. Yes, the qualifications gained by the applicant, that's measurable. The number of games the boys play, the number of boys involved, they're all quantifiable. The other important factor is that they become a member of the League of Football Associations, of five-a-side football associations. Other funding, right, the client's likely to have difficulty because of the language barrier and also because he's an asylum seeker. Sports, as far as I'm aware, sports sponsorship is actually quite difficult to obtain. The council is unlikely to fund an unknown individual of unknown status or indeterminate status. I know of a project in Brixton which does something very similar with boys from the local community, but the individual is a PE teacher and has been active in the community for years, and that's how he's got funding. The other factors is that yes, it does reduce, number 6, it does reduce exclusion. Football unites cultures, or can cause quite spectacular rows as well, but the boys have a skill they can use at school, they can get involved with extracurricular activity. Also, there's nothing to stop them from joining a football team in the park because they'll have skills they can use. Improves the quality of life for the teenagers, definitely. It gives them something to do, and something that the English do. It's part of bringing together cultures. Communication understanding, yes, competing with other teams will have to integrate the youngsters and form bridges between the two cultures, the English and Cameroon, and also the presence of a Cameroon team in the five-a-side league will raise awareness of the fact that they're actually there. And so for those reasons I would say yes, accept Roger Dory, because he's going to have difficulty in elsewhere, he's got a good project. David Rogers, the community gardener, I would recommend that if that's the way you work, if that's the way the board works, is to offer him some money, but if he matches it from funding from elsewhere. The third one, I would say no. I would advise that the applicant is actually, maybe somebody needs to sit down and talk through what she's applied for and make it more focused so it meets her needs and clearly demonstrates what it will achieve. It's a hodgepodge, so that's what I would recommend, and that's the reasons why I was recommending those projects. I think the other thing I'm supposed to mention is I'm assuming that you have child protection policies, or that this possibility has actually been explored in some way, because both Roger Dory and David Rogers will be working with children. So I've not gone into that issue, but I'm hoping that he'll have a policy. So thank you.